last time we tried to do this episode, and I tried to show my bandmates, I was really excited to show them because I was like, look, this guy, he knows his shtick about guitars and amps and stuff. And I was like, look, this guy, this is probably the best interview I've done for you, like for them. I was like, look, it's gonna be right up your street because I'm chord illiterate and whatever. And I went to show them, and they said, I can't hear anything. I was like, oh, I can hear me. And he's like, we can see his lips moving, but he can't hear anything. And I said, well, I didn't interview a fucking ventriloquist. So, and then they all had a laugh at my expense. And they said, so you spent an hour or two with this guy and you couldn't hear him in the end. I said, well, I didn't know that was going to happen. So, touch wood, and I have got a bit of wood here. I'm touching it. That it's not going to happen this time. So, so yes, for people who don't know you, well, I'll say the word Limehouse Lizzy. If you've seen Limehouse Lizzy, you may know who this guy is. So just dispel the myth and tell everyone who you are.
My name is James Roberts, and I play guitar in a bunch of different circumstances, but probably most prominently in Limehouse Lizzy, who are a UK-based Thin Lizzy tribute band.
So how long have you been playing with Limehouse, and what led to you getting the call with them?
With them for it's becoming 7 years now, which is wild. But basically, those guys have been going since 1993. They've been going for a long ass time. And when I was a kid, when I was like 17, a friend of mine sort of dragged me along to see them. A big sold out room in Dudley. From that day to the growing up, I always, we all want to be rock stars, right? And I think as you get older, you reconfigure your expectations. And I always thought that I saw Limehouse out there, and they seemed to be successful at doing what they were doing. It seemed like they were making a living doing it. It was actually a day job band, which was the dream. So sort of in the intervening sort of 20 odd years between me first seeing them and then joining the band, I in my mind I would have liked to have been in a band like Limehouse, but I was like, wouldn't it be great to be in Limehouse Lizzy? And lo and behold, at the back end of so I was doing I first, I'm sort of jumping around, apologize for the Reader's Digest version of my history. So I was a postie for 17 years while I was trying to get things going in different sort of directions, and I finally got a gig at on Towers theme park doing shows. So I was running around on a pirate ship at the hotel, dressed as a time-traveling steampunk adventurer, shredding Eddie Van Halen solos in people's faces, which is, different to delivering letters for a living. Not better, not worse. Just but it was, that kind of was enough of a gig to give me the confidence to make the leap from the day job. And then about a year later, they told me they didn't need me anymore. But literally, as I was finishing up at On Towers in Christmas 2018, Limehouse's my predecessor had decided he was leaving, and Limehouse just put up on their socials, they looking for a new guitarist. The friend that first took me to see Limehouse 20 years prior pinged me over a message and said, look, Limehouse are looking for a new guitar player. They were advertising, just get in touch if you think you're up to it. So I emailed them. I thought, what have I got to lose? I emailed them and said, I hear you're looking for a new guitar player, and I am him. I thought I might as well be a cocky prick about it. What's the worst that could happen? And they fell for it, and that was that. And yeah, so I went up and sort of did an audition with them. It went well, and basically I had like a fortnight over the Christmas of 2018 to learn the whole 2-hour show, which certainly kept me busy. But yeah, so from that day to this, that's been Limehouse has been my sort of main gig.
So the Alton Towers lot, were they not really au fait with EVH? Did they want something like, I don't know, Dolly Parton, or I'm trying to think of some really cheesy people.
I got to get I say it's ripping EVH shows. The truth was they were doing their Halloween show, Scarefest, and one of the songs in Scarefest was "Beat It" by Michael Jackson.
Yeah, yeah,
Famously has a wicked
yeah,
Van Halen in it. And basically, I bumped into. I won't bore you with this story, but I bumped into the guys that ended up becoming my best friends. They were the best men at my wedding. Two of them were girls as well, so best women. I don't know, but yeah, I bumped into them, and they were like, "We need somebody to come and play with us for this show," and that was why I got a gig. And then I was at On Towers for a couple of years at that point with that band, and then they moved along, and then I was there for a bit longer. But basically, it was a pop show, really.
yeah.
Whatever was going on at the time, there was Ed Sheeran and Dua Lipa, and you know, I'm a whore. I'll pay whatever. I'll play whatever for the you know.
Well, that's it. Yeah, yeah. But they just maybe didn't have an appreciation for either. You should have just done Hot for Teacher. You should have just done the intro, and that would have, they probably wouldn't have known it if that hit them in the face. But
It would have made it would have put a smile on people's faces, I'm sure. No, it was really good fun. It was a really fun time, and like I say, it got me out of the day job. It got me like, okay, maybe I can actually pay the bills doing this, which I never really believed in, I guess, all those years before.
I mean, I've been in say my experience, especially with COVID and lot of government stuff, which I won't get into because it'll get me a bit irked. Playing unless well, basically, I think unless you're like a tribute or a covers band, playing originals music, and we'll touch upon what I do a bit later because it's not about me. It's not very sustainable. I think a lot of bands, even bands on our scene, the grassroots and even higher, they're all holding down day jobs, and often families as well.
For sure, I really admire what you guys. I love your stuff anyway. But exactly as you say, the idea of trying to make a go of it. I've ended everything I do is covers basically. In a lot of different circumstances, and I do quite a bit of session stuff as well. But again, it's all shows that are just doing covers, and to try and to actually try and pay the bills doing your own stuff. I must would be terrifying. I think
Mm.
it seems. I was talking about to some of the guys in the band about this recently, actually, that it seems more and more you have the artists that come out and it's like bam, 3 nights at Wembley Stadium, or exactly as you say, there's no way they could do it and not have a day job to sustain themselves. There doesn't seem to be that middle tier as much as there used to be. Do you know
No,
what I mean?
you're right. It's kind of like, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the middle are kind of not really going. It's like, let's say your Coldplays and your U2s, they're going to continue doing all the big gigs, the Sphere, and all, and they're going to continue for as long as they can. And I guess the grassroots, I don't know whether you'd place the grassroots and, like, let's say the Premier League, the sort of bottom half of the table or the mid. But I think, it's like there's teams that will always kind of try and get near the top, but they'll stay in the middle. And I know obviously you've got like the MVT Music Venue Trust, who, obviously are trying to do stuff for, grassroots, obviously not bands in particular, but, venues, promoters ish, but it's, they're trying to do some initiatives where some of the big stadium gigs, £1 or whatever per ticket goes into like the MVT, and let's say the MVT sort of grassroots fund, which I think is great. But one thing I've always wondered, and this isn't me at all poo-pooing what they're trying to do because the government won't do anything and aren't, is how far does that money sort of trickle down as such? Because obviously pre-COVID, definitely, but obviously more so when COVID hit, the amount of venues that were closing per week, promoters, because again, it's, as well as, being an originals band's great, it's tough. Again, we'll talk about it later, but it's a numbers game, it's a money game. That's really, we live in a capitalist society, so everything is about making money. And if you're not, if you're not going to be able to make money for the promoter or the venue or whatever, it's a business model or a business transaction that won't really work. So that's you can't unfortunately avoid that. But I mean, what you guys do in Limehouse, like you said, it's enough to pay the bills. Obviously, well, actually, for context, if say for example you didn't do your teaching and the covers stuff you did, so yeah, taking out everything and just focusing on Limehouse, would you say Limehouse it would be sustainable enough on its own to.
I yeah, just it'd be there wouldn't be as many guitars on my walls, perhaps, but and maybe I'd be eating beans on toast a bit more, but just about, yeah. But I'm so lucky that that's with on starting on the platform of having Limehouse as the main gig. I've managed to get plenty of other work as well. So as a supplement to Limehouse, then it's somehow turned into quite a good living. But in and of itself, I think what the fact of the matter is, compared to say, if we were an AC/DC tribute band, for example, we're talking about if you consider the size of the band we're a tribute to, AC/DC are a giant act, whereas Thin Lizzy are a superb band, obviously, but they're you put Thin Lizzy on a poster, it's not gonna pull them in the
Yeah.
same way that AC/DC will. So I think the Wayne and Greg, the guys who founded the band, they've really had to dig in and bust a ball to keep it going and to keep the audiences and promote it and make it work to the degree it does. As I say, because Thin Lizzy, the name, isn't unfortunately as big as perhaps it should be.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's like I say, it's not like Guns N' Roses. You see lots of,
Yeah.
tribute bands
Sure.
or, yeah, but I mean,
A
yeah, but
massive one.
I do agree. It's all subjective. It's all subjective. Um, but Thin Lizzy, I mean, is I think, obviously the Boys Back in Town and Jailbreak and all the sort of classic songs. I'd like the name to be bigger, but it's just you know.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And we're delighted that we getting to play that music. It's great music. It's fantastic music to play. It's so much fun. Given that we're coming back every week, and effectively it's 95% the same show.
Mm,
But it's such fun stuff as players to get stuck into that it never really gets old.
mm,
But as I say, in terms of bums on seats and the capitalist side of it, the making the money work. Obviously, if we were a tribute to a bigger band, but we were operating at a similar level, there'd be more tickets, probably a higher ticket price, or whatever. But we're very lucky and very happy with our sort of role in that firm.
mm. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, obviously with the cover stuff and session work, obviously you get to learn. I guess you play with different musicians and you learn different things, and obviously it kind of improves you as a musician. But I mean, it's not a case of would you have preferred to have, but I'm guessing obviously way pre Limehouse and during. Have you done much like originals stuff? And did you kind of, I guess, would you have liked to have done maybe more original?
Absolutely. When I was basically from when I was a kid, when I first picked up guitar, I wanted to. I started writing, and until the age of about 30, that's what I was doing. I was trying to get original stuff. I had a couple of bands, trying to trying to do that thing, trying to get it moving. And I guess I didn't have the um I don't know. I couldn't make it fly. There weren't quite. I guess there weren't quite the tools there are now. It was sort of the interim between the old days where you hypothetically send off a demo tape to a record company or something like that, and the sort of crossover into the modern era of being able to utilize social media and YouTube and that. But if I'm honest, I didn't have the nous for the promotional side of it. I was focused on the creating of the writing and getting the band together. And I would, it would have been nice. Really, it's a shame there was nobody else in the outfit that had that sort of brain to push it. So yeah, I would love to have done that. But now I am working, slowly starting to work with some more original artists, actually, sort of in a session capacity, I guess. But they're just, so if I can tell you about maybe the other biggest sort of part of my job, I guess, is in the last sort of 3-4 years, I've started playing at a place called Albert Schloss. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. There's now four of them, I think. I play in Birmingham mostly, but there's one in Liverpool, Manchester, London, and basically they're a venue. You might say it's a bar, a really big bar, or stroke restaurant, stroke night spot. I think that for the last 3 years, it's won the awards for the best place to be in Birmingham. And basically, they put on live entertainment 7 nights a week. So it's a big pool of the best guys in the city. Like, everybody there terrifies me. They're all monsters. And basically you'll get Wednesdays are a request show, a drumming pianos request show, so you don't even know what you're going to get there. On the weekends you'll get a set list of like 24 songs, and like 48 hours before you'll get this set list through. Saturday night the curtains are open, there's like 700 or 800 people in there on a Saturday night, and you'll show up. It's a 7-piece band. Last week I even though I've been there a few years, I hadn't met 3 of the people in the band. But it doesn't matter. The curtain's open. Bosh, you go. And it's a high standard. The crew fantastic, and basically, so that's kind of opened up a whole new pool of musicians for me to know and network. It's a great network.
Yeah.
And so through that, I've started to play with a couple of originals acts that play there in a covers capacity, but they're also working on their own stuff, because most of them are a bit younger than me. I'm a bit old bit long in the tooth, but I'm moisturising, so hopefully they don't realise I'm. So yeah, so that's bit by bit. I am starting to get a bit of that original material thing back in my diet, which is very enjoyable.
I mean, I'm guessing, do they put up? Then this is just for context, really. Do they put on much original stuff, or is it like 80% covers, tributes, because that's kind of what draws the punters in, I guess, and puts the money over the bar?
At Albert Schloss, you mean? It's all covers. It's all covers. But obviously, through having played with all these people now and gelled with them musically, then outside of that, they're starting to put gigs on and work on their own careers, and hopefully dragging me along for the ride.
But it's interesting, like you said, it's only covers, because I played with the guitar player Dave in the L Orchestra. We were in a sort of southern rock outlaw country covers band, doing like ZZ Top, Cash, and Skinner, that sort of usual stuff. And the thing is, it's songs that people know, and and that's what people. It's just easier. You kind of almost say sort of guaranteed a crowd, more or less. But we did a tour with a guy called Warner Hodges. I'm not sure if you heard of him.
Definitely know the name, yeah.
So he was played guitar in a band called Dan Baird and the Homemade Sin. He did Georgia Satellites, if you know them. They did a song called "Keep Your Hands to Yourself." It's quite a famous party song. But anyway, and then he's obviously got his own band, Jason and the Scorchers. We did a tour with him, and he puts, I can't remember the songs, but he, with his original stuff, he would obviously put in some Jason the Scorcher's stuff and whatever, but he'd put in some covers. And he said, "Oh, that's what I do." He said, "Man, like I put in three cover songs throughout my original set, and it just keeps people." He said, "It keeps people interested, but it kind of it keeps them on side. So like we'll stick in a couple of covers in our own style, and again, it's this kind of familiarity, and that's I guess maybe not say maybe, but that's why it's as a grassroots band on a certain level, it's kind of it's a lot of graft, but to kind of try and break that fourth wall, that that ceiling, especially like like a lot of bands are still very DIY, like we do everything ourselves more or less, and unless you've got a lot of money behind you, it's difficult to go far, because I don't think really you can forget about doing it yourself. I almost think no matter how good you are as a band, no matter how good your music is, obviously money plays a big part, but I don't think you can really get far on just like musical merit on its own. It's all about who and like you said, networking. I mean, we did this gig recently on Worthy Farm, and do you know a girl called
That looked fantastic.
Ray and Inhaler? And obviously Ray is kind of like not someone we'd expect to be sharing the same stage with at all, because she's huge, I mean really big, 7 Brits and 2 Ivan Novellos. But we did this series of shows, and we got picked by Sir Michael Eavis to do it. I didn't realise Inhaler, Bono's son's band, they'd been going for 12 years, but they were good. But it was like literally watching a superstar, more or less. And I think her recent tour, I think nearly every date's pretty much sold out. So it was like, so that was really, really cool. But again, it's like networking, and just because I think as an originals band, in general, I think in music, I think you've got to continue networking, engaging, and almost I think innovating as well. Because I think you can play the rock festivals, you can play the metal festivals, or whatever your genre is, but I think I think there's a lot personally. I think there's a lot of value to be playing the I say the commercial festivals, if that makes sense. Like we did one in Shrewsbury, Tewkesbury, and we were playing with like Ash. Most people know Ash, Newton Faulkner, Ella Henderson, and I can't remember her name. There's one chick who didn't win X Factor, but some pretty big names. I think that's really good. But the rock acts, I think, or the rock festivals, sometimes they can be a bit predictable, unless you're like supporting Iron Maiden or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And I've, having been to many an Iron Maiden gig, people tend not to give a damn who's supporting Iron Maiden. They're all outside the stadium until 5 minutes before Maiden go on anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a friend of mine called Dane Campbell, who's the drummer of Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons, and he's kind of the one who inspired me a long time ago to start doing the whole interview thing. Anyway, and he obviously Phil Campbell, Motorhead guitarist, if anyone doesn't know. But they are constantly on the road, and they played the O2. It's headlined by Judas Priest, which pretty big deal. And they did I think they opened up the show. They did a couple of dates with Guns N' Roses in Europe somewhere. But I mean, I think that's a pretty big deal. I mean, do you know what? I wouldn't care if I was if you're playing 5 minutes with a huge artist. It's but I know what you mean. Like if Maiden are headlining, that's that's who people are gonna sort of go to see.
That way, that's the best way to get your music into fresh ears, isn't it? That was kind of always the way, and in many ways I assume it still is, to actually to take the message on the road. And obviously the opening for a big act means that you get to the opportunity to win their crowd over, right? So
I think that's the most organic way to grow your like new fans, friends, or whatever. Because certainly, there's when we played Worthy Farm, there, 80% there would have been there to see the top, the top acts. But there are people who just wouldn't have seen us otherwise. And do you know what was really funny? Which, it, not weird, ironic's the wrong word. I don't know, surreal. I think is the word I'm looking for. Is when we finished, most songs. I think we played to about it was about a 10,000 capacity show. They'd sold out in like a week because obviously it's a show for the whole Pilton village and the Glastonbury staff. I think we played to about 6 or 7,000. I think in the end, but when we finished every song, like the scream of the crowd, I'm not being funny, was predominantly from what I could detect, about 80% girls, teenage girls, or 20-year-olds, and teenage boys. And I literally felt like I was Gary Barlow singing at a Take That concert. It was just like, because normally our audience is like, I don't know, 40s upwards maybe, because it's a cross between country and southern rock and blues or whatever. But it was really good, and I thought, right, that's kind of and we had quite a lot of young people, like kids, coming up to us afterwards buying our merch and like, oh my god, you were brilliant. I think that's starting kids on, again, it's subjective, but good music, I think that's really kind of good, that and that actually, that almost makes it is worth it more than anything else. You get young kids coming up to you, you're kind of inspiring them to, they're buying a CD or buying your t-shirt, or they want to play guitar or drum, whatever. And I think that's really nice, because when I saw you play, well, saw you at the Wedgwood Rooms for the Limehouse show, which was, I think it was last year, so we're 25. I think it was 20. Yeah, it was 24. My father-in-law, and he he loves all that sort of thing, King Crimson and Dire Straits, whatever. Yeah, he loved it, and he, again, everyone says, the closest thing to seeing actually, Thin Lizzy. Like you said, you got to get every part right, every riff and every kind of harmony. But yeah, it's just, I think there's a mix, a big mix of people, like say old, mid, and there's quite a few youngsters at the Limehouse gig as well. Which again, that's I think inspiring the next generation of musicians as such. I think that's quite a
Yeah.
quite a cool thing.
Yeah. It's always obviously the we see of
Hang on, it's done it again. Oh bloody hell, this is frustrating. Say something.
hello.
Okay, fine. I don't know if carry on.
So obviously, we go around the circuit and we see a lot of the same faces, which is great, of course. But more and more, there does seem to be younger faces in the crowds, which is exactly as you say. It's a great thing because it's nice that that music is living on. The whole point of a tribute, really, I think, especially to a band that you can't go and see anymore, is to keep that music alive in whatever way you can. And the fact that younger people are still catching on to it and coming to the shows and losing their minds just as much as the sort of the dyed in the wall fans are is really, really cool to see. It's good to look out on. I think maybe with Limehouse in particular, certainly as somebody that was a fan of Limehouse for all those years, as I said, I think that is that with that band, it felt more authentic that way. You know what I mean? It
Mm,
was, you build rather than just seeing somebody pretending to be someone else. You build a relationship with that band
mm,
as a band. So we'd go to see Wayne do the Wayne thing, not like put in an accent and say lines from Live and Dangerous or something like that. And I think in our case, that sort of works for our audience, I think.
mm. I guess it's like going as far as having the same guitars. And a lot of tribute bands have the same drum kit, or or whatever. I guess to make it like an authentic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to recreate a show that obviously you can't go and see anymore because it happened 40 or 50 years ago is really cool as well. I'm actually doing Queen tribute this weekend, and so I've got the guitar, I've got the wig. I'm not above that. And that is okay. We recreate Wembley in
yeah.
1986 or something.
You will probably have to talk about like astronomy because he's obviously Brian May's into that. So you'll have to, I don't know, talk about the a galaxy far, far away or something.
Well, ultimately, once I open my mouth, the shrouds disappears
Yeah,
because it's like, oh, he's a brummy short ass. He's not a 6 foot odd astrophysicist, millionaire rock star.
that's it.
But until then, who knows? I can play some of the right notes.
So actually, so talking about, you said the guitar. So the one thing, obviously, when we last had our chat, um, we talked about gear, which obviously I'd still like to see, some of, and obviously had some chats since then. But the interesting, and it's still a very much a debate. Again, completely subjective. I don't think there's anything objective about it, really. It's like, what's better? I don't know, say CD or vinyl, but is the analog versus digital sort of debate, and how far, obviously, you can have, valve type effects in a pedal, cab simulations and impulse response and all that stuff. But then, everyone will obviously say there's nothing like, having like an actual tube amp, letting it warm up, and this, that, and the other, and kind of. I, I guess it sort of depends on what kind of music you're doing, and there's obviously lots of guitars that have like effects built into them. Obviously, like Matt Bellamy. I can't remember the name of the company who makes his guitars. It's not Chapman. Uh,
It's Manson.
Manson. So, and it's like, I don't know. Yeah, again, it's like I said, it's still up for debate. People like a wall of cabs and amps behind them, and some are happy with, like Pete in our band. He has a Kemper, and and it's great. If you want to rock up to a gig, plug in, done. It's so easy. I mean, we've scaled down our set up quite well. I think Dave's got a Boss. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a cab simulation pedal. It's got, well, you'd know because you was it a Boss rep back in the day? Was it?
Yes, I was a Boss demonstrator. Yeah, for about 10 years.
So you probably know the pedal, but it's got a couple. I think it's got about 5 or 6 amp models. So it's got like a tweed, sort of like a rectifier kind of effect, and then it's got like a Britpop effect, and it works, but it means we can set up in about 5 seconds, and it's easy. But what's your I guess, taking your personal preferences and, I guess, scenario, do you think there's an objective debate between analog and digital?
I think it all comes down to your circumstance and what's practical. I think audibly, a good digital setup. But once you got a band going at 1,000,000 decibels, the guys that are playing the biggest football stadiums, especially, you might go and see Oasis, and okay, they can keep it old school, and they've got a wall of Marshalls or matchless amps or whatever behind them. But if you go and see Taylor Swift, or something like all right, maybe every practical.
Scott?
Am I back?
Yeah.
So if you go, I imagine if you're going to see like Taylor Swift or Beyonce or something like that, every chance, for practicality's sake, they're using digital stuff. And ultimately, if you're in a football stadium and everything's on in ears, it's not that classic. You're not going to be feeling your trousers flapping in any case. You know what I mean? So for my personal circumstance, again, it depends on the gig. So with Limehouse, I'm very lucky that it's the one circumstance I play in where we still get to do the 4x12s and the proper amp heads and all that. But that's because we're lucky enough to have people to carry it around for us. If I had to
Well,
throw
that's
that
it.
crap,
Yeah.
I had to throw it in the back of my car 3 times a week. Forget about it.
Yeah.
But most of everything else I do, like the Albert Schloss stuff, mostly of the tribute stuff I use Modeler, because if I've got to get into, it's like a 5-minute walk from where I park my car. I can't be dragging a you know, even a combo really that far with a guitar. But all I need to do, because they've got great in-house techs, great PAs, I show up 10 minutes before stage time. They put 2 XLRs into the back of my fractal thing, and we're off the races, and it sounds fantastic in your ears. So, like I say, I don't think you're always going to have. There's probably a little bit of snobbery in it about
And
the odd.
puristry, if that's a word.
I
Yeah.
don't think there's anything wrong with that, because ultimately, yeah, 100%, you can't be cranking up a proper valve amp. The feel is, the digital stuff is 95% of the way there, but that extra 5%, it's nice,
Yeah.
but it's not a deal. It's not a deal breaker one way or the other, and the practicality thing really outweighs that for me
Yeah.
personally.
Practicality, space, and also what the venue setup is, and um, I've seen some bands who've like in a small space have turned up with like an Ampeg like 20x8 cab. It's like, oh god, this is overkill. And then it's like during sound check, it's like, oh my god, this is so loud. And it's like, oh, you gotta be relative to your setup. But then, like you said, with the digital stuff and going through your fractal thing, it's like, especially for doing covers, you'll want to, I don't know, you'll want to stick on a Hendrix tone or an Edge delay. You can sort of flip between the two, and obviously if you want a warmer amp or something slightly trebly or more crunchy, you've got that. Whereas you can't at the sort of flick of a switch, do that with a traditional tube amp. Even if you've got 3 channels, you'll have your amp, your lead, your and whatever, and your other 2 channels. But yeah, you can't simultaneously have all those effects at your, it's just one of the things, like different guitars. It's like you'd have too many guitars, even having like a double neck SG or whatever, Jimmy Page double neck, and that's great. But again, it's just not practical.
Yeah, some more things to carry around, more things to have to restring, because we restring every show. So yeah, in a way, just the less anything you have to worry about, the better. It's good for
Yeah,
your head.
I think restringing your guitar. I think sure. Yeah, with digital anyway. I think that's the only thing that's probably almost still analog, because you haven't got anything that can restring your guitar automatically. Obviously, you've got those tuner things that will automatically tune to, But also, you've got, like, if you've got a whammy bar and you're doing loads of dive bombs or whatever. So when we recorded last year, we recorded with a guy called Alessio Garavello, Italian chap. He's done some depth work with Dragon Force. Really nice guy. But a couple of guitars that he had built for him have got the the Evertune bridges. So obviously stops you, And I thought, that's, some people go, oh no, that's not, that's cheating. But actually, I mean, our guitarist doesn't use it, but I think that's actually a really good idea, because 9 times out of 10, if you're seriously like whammying a lot and doing loads of dive bomb, and it's just, your guitar going out of tune is probably one of the most frustrating things. And also, you can snap your strings as well.
For sure, absolutely. Sorry, I had a brain fart.
You're not thinking about Floyd Rose bridges or anything.
Well, I did away with those when I don't think I've bought anything with a Floyd Rose on since I was in my teens, because they are a pain in the arse. Fantastic when they're working. I have got a guitar up here with a Floyd on it, but that's from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking to what you were saying, it is. I think ultimately you are going to get with guitar, and it's only fun. It's not a war. But that you are going to have the purists that are like, no, it should be this Gibson Les Paul into this amplifier, and that's the only way that works. Whereas you've got other people, like, as I say, myself, I'm kind of like I've got feet in both camps.
Yeah, because you had your Friedman amp, which I was kind of like, oh, and I'm always looking at what amps people are playing, just because I find it very interesting. But obviously, a lot of amp companies, they still, a lot of them hand build the you know, the amps, and some obviously like the cheaper end. But you know, I think say Freeman do like stuff that's on like PCB. They still have to assemble them, but still people like hand wiring pickups and stuff. You've got loads of companies who do that. So the art of guitar making, luthiers and the electronics is still there. But then obviously you get your slightly more mass produced guitars. I guess it's like hand hammered Turkish cymbals versus mass, through a machine that hammers it, and they're cheaper. Doesn't mean they're bad. It's like you can still get some really good Squire guitars. I mean, it's like Tokai. They make some really good guitars. Like you said, it's people be like, no, I want a Mexican standard or an American standard Strat or whatever. But it's like then on the flip side, it's like again, you told me about this guitar company, Cornwall. Was it Cornwall? Your guitar that you played at Limehouse, and I said it looked like a Gibson Les Paul, but it was a. I don't know why I keep thinking they're called Badger. It's not. It's not. That's like the shittest name for a guitar company. What were they called again?
Or feline guitars.
I was close. It was an animal.
Yeah. Guy Jonathan Law, his name is, who builds them down in Croydon.
Croydon. That's it.
He's a cat enthusiast, hence feline guitars.
And they look really. Like I said, they look really nice. I mean, I love. Do you know like Baum? Have you had a Baum guitars? Baum. Because I love like a Thunderbird and a Firebird guitar, and they kind of they look quite slick, and also Hagstrom, like I quite like Hagstrom guitars. Not like the Swedish, like the Scandinavian guitar manufacturers are quite good, but again, they're all like very different. And but yeah, I've just got like I said, a fascination with. I think I probably follow more guitar pages on my Facebook page than I do drums, and that's like looking at different companies who do the gold foil pickups and just all there's like hundreds of boutique like effects pedal. Like Pete, honestly, like he would probably become your best friend very quickly. I think I don't know the model, but he's got a Milkman amp pedal. Can't remember what it's called, but uses that for his Mullen pedal steel. Apparently, I didn't know this. He told me today that Mullen was named after an astronaut who had I think he said he had a fascination with that kind of thing. And I thought, it's quite interesting.
Indeed, it is. Yeah,
but yeah, it is. Like I said, it's super fascinating. I mean, the other thing I'd say what is quite interesting is because he's not got too many guitars, but a tour we did recently, he had a Vox teardrop guitar. I can't remember from when it was, which is quite nice. But I know recently-ish he had a Goldjet, a Gretsch Goldjet, which I love. Completely different tone to. He's got a 335 Gibson custom shop, like 2005. But then he's also got a Gibson SG 63, from 1963, which paid a lot of money for. It's funny. The story is we was at a gig, playing a gig, or we was on the road to a gig. Sorry, and he was waiting for a call that I think like the music shop had accepted his offer or something on the 63 Gibson SG. But similarly, he was waiting for a call from his wife whether the house that they were buying had gone through. So it was kind of like, well, which one would you rather hear first from the guitar? And he was like, the guitar. But funny enough, on the same day, the guitar and the house sale went through together. But I much prefer the Gibson over the teardrop, personally, the SG, because the Gibson's got a bit more punch. I think there's Seymour Duncan's, the teardrop Vox. I don't know what pickups are in that, but the SG just looks cool, and it's just got a bit of a nicer sound. The 335 is nice, but the Vox is kind of a bit. I personally think it's jingly jangly, but again, goes to your Kemper. It's but it's all like you said. It's personal taste.
I think that was kind of the vibe with those guitars, though, sonically, wasn't it? Like SGs are a bit more of a raunchy, ballsy kind of rock punch to them, haven't they?
But yeah, so I said I know nothing about chords, but I know a good guitar sound when I hear one, and a good guitar player when I see one. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, you know. It's your ears more than anything else. It's not if on any level, you know, if it sounds good to you, it is good. If
Mm,
it makes you feel your way, it's doing its job. You
mm.
know. But-
Have a pause for a second. Say something.
Hello.
Okay. Well, so I saw Brothers Osborne. I mean, like they were like, you know, they're one of my favourite bands. But John Osborne's like one of my, like I said, I'm a drummer talking about my favourite guitar player. It's very weird, but I think he is one of my favourite guitar players. And yeah, it was phenomenal. Classic, you know, country band at a telly. And he was playing. It was something to do with like they couldn't get all their equipment over, and they had to like borrow and this, that, and the other. And there's only a certain amount of gear they could bring. But anyway, he had wasn't a flash setup, but he had John Osborne had a head. They didn't have many cabs on stage by a brand called Two Rock. Have you heard of Two Rock?
Yeah, they're nice, expensive, but yeah, great sounding amps for sure.
Okay, because I still don't know much about them. I'm trying to dig into them, but anyway, and yeah, again, just such an intellectual player. Just yeah, again, I can't tell you what he's playing, how he's doing it, but just very clever with his ear and just yeah, just so good. You know, what he's obviously playing and what he's playing it through sounded great, and just his solo. It's funny. He's not like I don't know. So this will probably offend some like Steve Vai or Satriani or Yngwie Malmsteen fans, but just not like this is what our guitar player says. You know, he's not guitar wanking. You know, for the sake of it. He's just very clever and very nuanced. And again, it's like you know, in any band, if you're a musician, you know when to crank it up and when to pull it back. But just very clever in what he was playing, how he was playing it, the tremolos and all this pentatonics. Blah, says I know shit all about that stuff, but yeah, just so good. You listen to him, and you're just like, oh my god, that's beautiful. You know, and it's almost like he's not trying hard at all. You know, he just again, some players just make it look effortless. Obviously, have people have bass face and guitar where you know they're really concentrating. But yeah, honestly, like a flawless player. And yeah, I could only dream of being like him, but the drum version doesn't make any sense. But yeah, like Bonham, but I'll never be like that. But yeah, I try.
I mean, speak to that. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in that it is. Um, it isn't necessarily about. It's not about technique. It is about if something speaks to you. Like I say, you know, his playing is exactly, you know, it tickles your taints. That's what's doing it. There are some people that I guess what they want to hear is fret wankery, and if that makes them feel a certain way,
Yeah.
that's cool. But certainly, you know, always talk about Dave Gilmore,
Mm,
who I'm a big fan of. And there's I don't know if he's ever played, you know, in 16 notes in a bar, that kind of fast run in his career. But
mm,
when he puts his hands on a guitar, everything that he you know manages to wring out of it is just magic to me.
mm,
To a lot of people, and that's the thing. It's about finding a voice on whatever your instrument is, and communicating that voice. And technique is useful, but it's only a means to an end. It's not the end itself. I think. I say this to somebody that sits there for 3 hours every night on my sofa just working on this, you know. But it's there's no need for it to. Well, of course, there's a need for it,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not the point.
Mm.
Just another tool to communicate yourself better. Sounds a little bit airy fairy, but you know what I mean.
No, I do know what you mean. I mean, it's like we say technique, like so to draw a parallel with technique is akin to I'd liken it to like theory and technique, because okay, so drums, rudiments, double stroke, triple stroke rolls, and all this, and triplets, and paradiddles, and all that sort of stuff. As a drummer who didn't do theory, I can't sight read. I was going to make a joke. I'm not going to. But it's made me chuckle. I won't say it because I do. I do these jokes to the guys in the band, and they go, "That's not funny." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Um, um, but yeah, like Cyprus, like drum music, tablature, that kind of thing. I can read that enough, but everything I've done is through ear. And again, there's no right or wrong. Say being, playing to ear is better than playing to a sheet of music. Again, it's circumstance, scenario, and blah blah blah. But I know, like, if I could sight read, it'd open up a load of doors. If I don't know, had lessons and I don't know, yeah, improve my technique. It's the thing. It's like there are things that rather than using your whole arm to, it's all about the wrist and kind of there and how you control the stick, and so it's basically it's playing efficiently, so playing smarter, not harder, if that makes sense. But yeah, there's low. I mean, I don't know about you, but there's probably things that maybe we could have done which we can always play better. I think that's the thing, not just play, but anything in life. We can always be better. But I think if you're at a standard, so like for you, for example, which is good enough, and obviously a lot more, that suits what you're doing, I think that's fine. But trying to seek self-improvement in various aspects, I don't think that's a bad thing as such, because we're always our own worst critic. And I think it's actually all right not to give yourself a bloody hard time, but just to kind of reflect on your performance as such, a bit like a football manager. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just kind of, you want to be the best you can be, because being in a band is like being in a football team. It's a team effort, and I think if you play well, everyone else vibes off of that, and it's and also the crowd vibes off it as well. So it's all interconnecting, and so yeah.
100% exactly that. And I think you hit on something important there about it being like being a part of a team, in that if you're a band of, if you take yourself seriously as a band, you want to know that I've done my homework and I know I can count on that guy and that guy and that guy, because people will still. It's not something I even think about it anymore. But when you're a kid and you start playing in front of audiences for the first time, people are like, "Oh, do you get nervous and stuff like that?"
Getting nervous, yeah.
Well, because as long as I know that I've done my homework,
Yeah.
I know I can count on everybody else on the stage. There's nothing to worry about. You know,
Mm.
if you're in a position where, I don't know, the drummer always, like, he gets the wrong number of bars in the middle eight of this song or something like that, then you're gonna be like, oh shit, things could go wrong. As long as you can trust everybody else and you
Mm.
can trust you, there's no.
No, I think like there was. I guess it's how you pull it off on stage. If you make a mistake, you kind of laugh about it. That's sort of what we do. But I think Billy Joe of Green Day, he did I don't know when it was, but there's a couple of gigs where he like played the wrong chord or played the wrong part of the wrong song or whatever, and he stopped and he was like, yeah, okay, I'll admit I fucked up, and that's it. You're only human. You're gonna make mistakes. I mean, there's been not a lot of occasions, but occasion where the stick's flown out my hand and I've recovered well, or kind of looks like I've dropped, like thousands of pennies, and I'm trying to find the one that's the shiniest, just like fuck. And sometimes I feel a bit of an amateur when that happens, but yeah, it's like, again, it's just
What came at the weekend? We just played at Manchester Academy at the weekend, and I go up to the front of the stage. It's Thin Lizzy, so there's like dozens of guitar solos, but I go up to the front to do the Guitar Hero thing, and halfway through this solo, I'm throwing some shapes or something, and the bass cuts out, and we're like, well, it's kind of an outro solo. It's come to the end of the song anyway, so it's the last 6 bars of the thing in
Yeah.
any case. But so we're like, what the hell's happened? And I look down, and I've accidentally kicked out the cable from the bass player's pedal board.
Wow.
Yeah. So it happens. I would say that somebody, not me, should have taped that down a bit better. So I'm not claiming responsibility, but I did kick the thing out. So
Yeah.
and like, what are you gonna do?
Well, it's like, I think there's been a couple of shows that I sort of can count on maybe 20 pairs of hands where and where Dave will start panicking, be like, shit, there's no sound, what the fuck, and it's like he's either put his tuner pedal on, mutes obviously the signal chain, or as funny as and he'll again take the piss, he'd be like, it normally helps when you plug your guitar cable in, doesn't it? Kind of. It's like he's like, I don't know, like the Charlie Chaplin of guitar. He's like a silent guitar player. But yeah, again, it happens. If you're oh fuck's sake, yeah, it's and then even sometimes Dave will turn around to me, and he'd be like, "Oh, look, once again our drummer's out of tune," and it's like, "No, you can't throw that on me." And you have a laugh with it. I think that's the thing. You have a laugh with it, and people generally, sort of, again, how you behave on stage, the crowd will then reciprocate that kind of, if you're having a laugh and smiling, then everyone else will. That's what people say, like when they see us, they go, "Oh, you're always having a laugh. You look like you're having a good time, and you really get on with each other." I'm like, "Yeah, do we fuck?" Um, but yeah,
it is infectious. If you look like you're enjoying yourself, that the crowd are going to enjoy themselves more as well.
Mm,
We quite like it's like you guys, because we do have a laugh on stage, even though we've been doing it a long time together. And we live on the road. We're all in a van together for 12 hours a day or something like that. But yeah, we do get on,
mm,
and that's the stage. We do sort of. Obviously, Wayne's the only one. Well, we've all got microphones. We all sing, but he's the only one with like a direct line to the audience. So he ribs us more than we rib him back, perhaps. But there's absolutely just a good sort of bonhomie on stage.
yeah, you got to have that. What I do want to do, sort of, not say as we wrap up, the next sort of 10 minutes is just to have a look at because, like you said, you got lots of guitars, lots of pedals. I mean, what I'd kind of, I mean, I don't know if you've got your feline guitar with you or hung up, but I guess what I kind of would like to look at is sort of what's your go-to setup generally, like, if everything else aside, you're right, if I was to strip this is my pedal, and this is like my one or two two guitars that you'd always gravitate to.
Obviously, I'm delighted to talk about this. That's my favorite topic. So happy to. Should we get into it?
Yep.
All right. So how about if I sort of turn the camera around
Yeah,
and
yeah,
show
yeah.
you? So under my feet at the moment, this is, how do I do this? Hang about. Okay. So this is a Fractal FM9.
Okay, tell
Which
me about that.
is okay. So have you heard of the
Apart from
Axe
the
FX?
Christmas lights. It's too early for
It
Christmas.
does it does like light up nice, doesn't it? Yeah. So have you heard of the Axe FX, the Fractal Axe FX?
I know Fractal, but not enough.
So basically, it's another modeler like a Kemper or like
A
Rock
Helix
Horse.
or whatever. Yeah.
These once again, it's horses for courses. I've moved on to this from the Kemper just because I was using Kemper for 10 years, loved it. But it was, I fancied something different. I heard these and I thought, wow, that sort of sounds and feels the next step up. I like Metallica basically use these things in football stadiums. they use the rack mount version, but from what I'm led to believe, now their entire show is just these. And again, a lot of other sort of it's kind of like the best you can get.
So
Um,
why is that, and why is it a step up from Kemper? Even if you're looking, the pedal board version or the desk, why is it a step up? Do you in
well,
yeah
I should give the qualifier because I don't want people coming after me and going because everyone's got that. It's like no, screw you. Xbox is better than PlayStation.
yeah
It's like, it's for me. I'm
yeah
not saying
no,
it
but
is
why do you
objective.
why do you think it's better for you
For me, what I found with the Kemper, for example, obviously that's the profiling thing
yeah
as opposed to modeling. So profiling is it goes through a process where it almost literally steals the soul of an actual amplifier.
yeah
Okay. Um, so what you get is an exact snapshot of an amplifier the way you set it up when you profiled it, whereas modeling is a different approach wherein it digitally just recreates the architecture of an amplifier to give you hope, and hopefully the net result should be there or thereabouts the same thing.
mm.
I've always been known for the guy that sort of built these things initially, just really, really insanely detailed. The amount of different elements you can change in each model.
So you showed me your fractal setup, and you were saying, so using that as an effects unit, and like saying it just sort of you prefer it to the Kemper because of the versatility. I mean, what other reasons do you find it to be more, for you anyway, to be more suitable?
I'm finding when I'm using it for its modeling, I'm just finding it because what I'm led to believe with the Kemper when it came out, it was kind of revolutionary. But I think ultimately they've done there was liquid profiling and that kind of thing, so they did sort of up the ante a little. But I think modeling technology came on quite a lot in the time I was over at Kemper. So when I came back to it from the old sort of Line 6 stuff I had, it felt a significant leap had been made in terms of the sound of it and the feel under your fingers, which of course is really important.
Mm.
So yeah, for me, it's I've got nothing but praise for the Kemper for everything. It's all good stuff. It's not there's no right or wrong answer. It's just this bit of kit right now works for me.
Mm. So I mean, what's like, because I say pricing or whatever. Like I know some people poo-poo Line 6. Obviously, they had the pod back in the day, and which I think back in the day, I think some people still use it actually. But yeah, there's I think Line 6. I think it's the Helix, isn't it? The Line 6 does.
That's,
Is it Line 6?
yeah, you got it. The
And
Helix.
then you got Fender, obviously do a few things. Like you said, you got Neural DSP, the Quad Cortex. There's loads of different things. Obviously, with the IR stuff where you can, download patches and you can obviously tweak everything, like so from where the mic is, what mic, what kind of room it's in, and I guess not say it becomes a bit complicated. I think, and maybe that's why some people prefer the analog, because it's sort of say no frills, but you got your gain, you got your master volume, you got a 3-band EQ, you might have like a bass boost or something like that. And that's it. I mean, I was showing our guitar player action. I thought I'd never seen it because I'm not in the scene of guitars, but I thought, that's a freaking awesome idea. I've never heard of Synergy, and they have, I think some of them have 2 slots, maybe, where it's effectively it's a cab, and it's got like the EQs and stuff and the volumes there, but you slot in a graphics card to your computer, you can have an Engel, and I think they've been approved and not maybe manufactured, but been approved by the manufacturer. You had like a Marshall, an Engel, yeah, a Synergy, a Soldano, whatever, and you can just slot it in, and you've got, you know, a Soldano amp. Do you know? Have you heard of them?
Ryan, that's exactly what I'm using on stage with Limehouse at the moment. I've got a Synergy about 4 months ago. Yeah.
So you're not using your Friedman?
No, I'm not anymore. Yeah, I got the Synergy. Funny enough, I'm using a Friedman module in it.
Yeah.
But I'm finding it a lot better. Actually, I'm getting on a lot better with it. Yeah, I think that Synergy stuff is bad because exactly as you sort of laid out, it's almost like plugging in one of those old Nintendo games. You know, you remember the NES in the 80s?
Yeah, I've still got
like
a NES. I've still got a NES.
Yeah, it's like slotting in like Super Mario
Yeah.
Brothers 3. Bang it in, but exactly as you say, it's the exact, and it's a valve power amp, it's a valve preamp, it's a valve amp, but you get to change out the preamp stage.
Yeah.
And exactly all those manufacturers are on board and they're using the same circuits in the, you know, the more grown up amps, but it means that you can take any number of different amps on the road in a really small package.
But I guess some people obviously will still have like their key effects pedals or whatever. But obviously, you know, they might want like a Marshall, or they might want a rectifier or a diesel or whatever. But you think you'd have to, like, if you really wanted, you know, it'd be pointless. But you'd have to take a couple of Synergy cabs and maybe you know, a handful of, like a bag of Skittles, you know, a handful of the modules, you know, which is why I guess, you know, some people go for these, you know, floorboard, you know, pedal board amps, modelers, and all that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting because I just thought I'd never seen anyone do it before. Then I watched a NAMM video and I thought that is such a good idea. And again, like I said, depends on, you know, but the fact is it's not like a little chip that's doing it. It's, you know, it's Valve, and I think that's what I said to Dave. I was like, look, it is Valve. They've not, you know, synthesized it as such. It's just, you know, rather than lugging 10 different heads, you lug around one, and because it, no, yeah, it's one insert, one module per head, isn't it? I don't think you can put. No, you can put two in side by side, can't you? On some of the Synergies.
Okay, so yeah, they've been going for a while now, and they've sort of nuanced the technology. And yeah, there were some heads where you could put two modules in.
Yeah.
But the just put out this year is a compact lunchbox head, so it's even smaller than that Friedman Runt that I had.
Yeah.
And so that's only got one slot in it, but it's other than that, it's the because with the other one, some of them you get like the thing that you plug the modules into, but then you have to put it through a power amp and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And this one, I think it's called the Sin One or something like that. But
Yeah.
it's the whole package. It's the power amp stage and the loader for the modules.
Explain, because I said I'm not a guitarist, so again, it's more for my education rather than anyone else's necessarily. But explain like the preamp stage, the power stage, and the different stages. You know, yeah, explain that, because that's something again. Could you explain what impulse response was the last chat we had, which I'd kind of a bit more in favour. But yeah, so explain it a bit.
Okay, yeah. So this when I was working for Boss, actually, this is a lot of my job was trying to gently explain to sort of guitarists as a breed. I tend to be quite scared of technology. So there's this whole thing called the four cable method. Okay, so if you want to integrate an effects processor into your rig, for example, with a reverb or a delay, you imagine you've got a dual rectifier, say a really dirty amplifier.
Yeah.
If you plug it into a delay pedal or a reverb and then plug it into the front of your amp, it's going to take that reverb and it's going to go make it it's going to make it dirty in the same way that it's going to make your guitar tone dirty, right?
Yeah.
So the four cable thing is with effects loops that you have on amps as well, is to enable you to put your reverbs and your delays, for example, after the preamp. So to answer your question, effectively put simply, with most guitar, if you've got an amp or a combo, you've got the preamp, which is effectively is where your tone is born. It's where the circuitry that for the gain stages and your EQ and everything is, and then the power stage effectively just makes that sound louder.
Okay, yeah, no, that's making sense.
With the Synergy, the preamp is literally it's the bit where the tone is born. That's what you get in the module, and then you plug it in, and the power amp is then built into the head. So then it basically takes that tone and makes it louder. And with so as I say, with effects loops, the idea is it means that you can put an effect, i.e. a reverb or a delay, between the preamp and the power amp. Therefore, it doesn't make the reverb dirty. It makes the dirty reverbed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then it puts that then goes into the power amp and then makes the whole thing louder.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, that seems logical. Okay, yeah. Huh, that's, I mean, yeah, that's, like you said, horses for courses, but I think it's still kind of, yeah, because obviously amp heads, are very, say, heavy, but it's all, and this is something I guess not say to explain to me because I kind of get it, kind of don't. Is you someone goes, oh, it's a 400 watt amp head, oh, it's gonna be, blah, blah, blah. But then you get like some of the Freemans or whatever, and it's like it's like a 10 15 maybe 20 watt head, and someone goes, oh, I don't know, oh, that's that's not going to be loud enough. Explain that.
Okay, so actually, yeah, with Limehouse, and given that we're a rock band, the Friedman I had, I think that was a 20 or 25 watt head.
Yeah.
And our sound guy would never let me get it past
1 or something.
2.
Yeah, it was loud.
I never got, and I'm not. This isn't 2 o'clock. This is 2 out of 11 because Friedman amps go up to 11. A la Spinal Tap. So you can be as loud as you want with those little heads now.
Yeah.
And actually, it's desirable because especially if you want any kind of dirt or gain from your amp, you want lower wattage is good because you want to be able to hit that power stage as hard as you can. Guitar amps work best and sound best when they're cranked up.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you've got 100 watt head and you want to get it to the sweet spot where it's going to work and do its job, that is going to tear faces off, which just is not something we want to be doing in theaters. It might be all right at Wembley Stadium, but anywhere else, actually, you can compete with a volume, a drummer's volume levels, no problem with the 20-25 watt amp.
Yeah.
So, and obviously that means they're also more lightweight because you haven't got as big transformers in there to kick out that kind of wattage. Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. I think this Synergy head I just bought is maybe, I think it might only be 10-20 watts, maybe 20 watts. And it's never gonna be a problem for me that I can't get it loud enough.
It's like, I mean, some people go, "Oh, loud is better." This takes me back to when I was bloody young, showing my age now, and they had Comet stores, and still had Tandies about. But I was buying my first stereo. It's all like buying your first car. You kind of think like when as a kid, when you were allowed your own stereo, it seemed to. It's like you were moving up in the world. And I went to Comet and had this. I looked for this Iowa stereo that had these ridiculous sized bass ports and stuff, and it had like a 6 CD changer, and it was like honestly, it had more lights than the 4th of July. It was, it was like a Christmas tree and a stereo in one, and they had this mix CD to test like the bass, because that's what everyone, all the kids wanted, like the bassier the better. And some kids are like that, some of those kids are about 50 driving around in their tin cans. And it was so if you know the song "If You Tolerate This" by the Manic Street Preachers, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like not a wah wah effect. You kind of got the intro, and then when the drums kick in, there's like a boom, and it was like, yep, that's the stereo, that's the bassy stereo, that's what I want. And it was like, I can't remember, it was something like 800 watt. I think, for example, but that, because I used to work in sound engineering, but that was like 800 watt PMPO, like peak maximum power output, but it was like RMS was like 20 watts, and it was just kind of like being like, oh my god, I'm buying an 800 watt stereo. Oh, I'm gonna, you basically had speakers that were the size of Stonehenge, and a bass sound that was equivalent of like a Notting Hill Carnival set up on a milk float, ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I look back at that, I think how I've matured into 41 years old. I'm like, yeah, I that kid down back then that had no clue.
I did exactly the same thing, Ryan. Honestly, I remember it very well. It was a good day. So look. Oh, no. I'm like someone's nan trying to figure out how to use the thing. Okay. Oh, here we go. There we go. I found it. Right. So you asked about his Mario and Taylor, by the way, obvious friends. So you asked about my go-tos. So
Yeah.
in terms of if I'm picking to go to a gig, let's see if I can. I'm going to be a dickhead here. Alexa, turn on bright in studio. There we go. I like it when my assistant does the thing. So I've just picked this up 2 weeks ago. It's a Tom Anderson, and it is number one with a bullet. This guitar is friggin' ace. Because I'm a big Strat guy, and this is basically. I was like, I want a super Strat because, as you can see, I like my PRSs.
I was going to say, yeah.
And they are kind of, PRSs are they're thought of as being a bit of a hybrid, really, I guess, of the Strat and Les Paul aesthetic. But this basically just Strats better than any Strat I've had. So that's really cool. So that is now the guitar, the first one I grab if I'm doing session stuff, if I'm going out and doing, Albert Schloss, if I'm depping.
And who's Anderson? Who's it again? Anderson's.
Tom Anderson.
Who's Tom
guitars.
Anderson?
Have you heard of Sewer guitars?
No.
SUHR guitars?
No.
Okay, so they're a bit, fancy guitars. So I believe somebody told me they only make 700 of these a year. So they're not really mass produced. It's a relatively small team. They've been going since the 80s, I think. Okay. I don't know the whole history of the guys that's build them, but yeah. So Tom Anderson's and Sewers, similar kind of ballpark. Great guitars, great build quality. Obviously they look a bit nifty as well. Sounds awesome.
So the pickups. Explain the pickups briefly.
Yeah, so this one compared to some of these is relatively straightforward. So they're all in-house Tom Anderson pickups. It's got this one's just standard HSS, so 5-way selector.
Yeah.
But we have got, you know what? I've had the guitar for so little time. I don't even know what these knobs and switches.
But I'm looking at like the split of the pickup. So like, for example, I don't know, like single coil, and so you got the bridge and the neck, and then you've got you got the bridge, which is like a double, and then you've got two separate coils for the neck and.
Exactly. So obviously you've got the humbucker, the bridge, which is two singles working together basically to give a higher output, and then the other two are singles. So in terms of switching, you've got five options. So you've got just the bridge on its own, then just the inside coil here and the middle, then these two together, then that one on its own.
Yeah.
So classic sort of Strat setup, but really, really, really cool. Whereas this one, this has been my number one for 15 years, 17 years. Wow, I'm getting old, man. And the cool thing about these, this is the model of this was 513. They were called because this has got. You'll notice this has got two different blade selectors on it.
Yeah.
So this is like the other one. This has got the 5-way.
Yeah.
But it's got this one. What am I reaching for? This one gives it. It's got 3 different modes. So you've got straight up single coil like a Strat.
Yeah.
What they call clear humbucking and then humbucking. So it actually gives you 13 different pickup configurations.
Blimey.
Which is so it's a proper sort of Swiss Army knife, that one. So hence that was my number one for years, and probably will be in perpetuity, really. But this is just my flavor of the month. This one, that's a studio, PRS studio. Again, I like PRSs. I don't know what to tell you. This one is golden green, should never be seen.
I was going to say it looks like greeny. You know what cam it has, just from like the color. If I didn't see anything else color, so that's fucking greeny. Obviously, it's not the,
No, it's I wish. No, that is straight up just green. I think they might call it Verdi or something with disgusting gold hardware that I love because I have no taste. And this is a modern Eagle. Cool story about this, actually. So
you didn't buy
a friend of mine,
did you? Because it looks very kind of like Playboy vibrating round bed kind of pattern.
You know what? Let me tell you a story about this. So a friend of mine, a bass player I work with, kind of he put a bee in my bonnet about it. Basically, he played one of these and he was like, "You've got to play one of these guitars." And I got excited and I talked myself into buying one. But at the beginning of last year, it was in Tesco, and that Guitarist magazine was on the shelf. And I saw one of these guitars, and I was like, "That's ludicrous." I mean, look at it; it's magnificent, but ridiculously expensive. This, that, and the other. Fast forward to the end of the year, I convinced myself to buy one, and it showed up. And long story short, this is the exact guitar that was on the front cover of Guitarist magazine.
Wow.
So that is pretty cool, but I don't dare leave that. It's the only guitars. My guitars are tools. So they if you look too closely at them, they're all a bit bashed up because they are tools of the trade.
They're made to be played.
This one, exactly. This one, I unfortunately no, and I hate that. But so that one, but I said this one's got 13 different sounds. This one's got, I believe, 17.
I think that's why Pete doesn't want to take his SG 63, 67, 65 anyway out on the road, because it's got a crack, I think, in the neck. And he's like, his teardrop Vox has had a chunk, and his PV power slide has had some chunks on it. And I said, every scratch tells a story, but it's just like, if he absolutely buggered his SG, I think he wouldn't forgive himself. But so this is one thing that I've always wondered. So you got your humbuckers, but then you've got also humbuckers, but they've got the cover on it. Is that right?
Yes.
So what's the main difference?
That's a good question.
Is it aesthetics or
those are covered humbuckers? That's kind of open, I guess.
Naked. Why?
It's a little bit of both. It's partly aesthetics, and I think some potentially if they're uncovered, you can maybe get a slightly more open sound from them. It's all very small degrees, I believe. I'm not that big a sort of tone hound in that regard, really. I'm rubbish with a soldering iron, so I tend to leave things stock. And if it sounds good to me out the box, then that's the sound. So I'm sure there are definitely people that you would talk to that would be more enthusiastic about the differences in that regard. But shall I show you the feel line you mentioned?
Yeah, show us the feel. Oh, fucking hell, too many guitars. Yeah, I love it. It's just
so yeah, there's loads of crap over there. There's loads of crap up there. I'm just
but yeah, the feel line, I just really liked it. Like, obviously because the Les Paul shape is very, iconic, like the Firebird or the Thunderbird. You know, that's why I like the Baum guitars, because they're kind of, you know, they've got that kind of look, and they've got, what's the the bloody Ibanez guitar? Is it Iceman? The in Kiss?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously with for Lizzy, you're obligated to play a Les Paul or at least a single cutaway guitar, you know.
Yeah.
And if you look across this rack, there's like 5 Strats on there or something. I'm
Yeah.
I'm a Strat guy. I'd never even owned a Les Paul when I joined Limehouse.
Yeah.
And so I had a few Gibsons and I didn't really gel with them. And then basically I stumbled upon this. I'd never heard of Felon guitars myself. I stumbled upon it on Facebook Marketplace, and I was like, yeah, that's more my kind of thing. Because as you can tell, again, like I say, I horrible taste. I like all these blingy, pretty looking things, so it fit me a bit better.
So I mean, talking of blingy, and top left in the wall, there's like a green shine. It looks like it's a John 5 guitar, just with the shiny thing. But that's a very looks like a Strat, but
so let me say. So you know, I said I've only got one guitar that I've had since I was a kid with a Floyd Rose on. That is this. This is a Steve Vai guitar.
Steve Vai, with the handle.
Yeah. That's the one. That's the one. So the cool thing about this, this particular model was the Gem BSB, and what they did is they burned it with a blowtorch, and then stained it blue. But it hasn't got a finish, like, you know, most guitars have a lack of finish.
Yeah.
And hence the absolute state of it. Like, look at the back, but I think it's got so much sort of mojo to it.
Yeah, so it's not a gloss. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, that's actually. But the handle,
it's cool, isn't it?
The handle, I've never not say I've never understood the practicality of it. It's like, you typically, if you hold your guitar, you hold it by the neck, by the headstock or whatever. But I was like, why the handle? It just seems so. It's like, okay, you know, if you bloody made a kettle without a handle, how the fuck are you going to pour your cup of tea? But just yeah, I just don't get it.
There's no need for it whatsoever. It's just, you know, Steve Vai was a bit wacky, wasn't he? So it was like, bang a handle in it, and why not?
I mean, if you could fit in like a knuckle duster in that, so at will, if someone's going to come on stage, you just whack it out and smack someone. But no, I just don't get it. It's just, anyway, but it's a nice looking guitar.
By the way, this, I should tell you that, so this up here, so you see it's completely down to the wood, is for about a period of about a month. When I was 18, I tried using steel picks. Because I heard that Phil Collin out of Def Leppard did, and that was my shoddy teenage rhythm technique. Mash the hell out of it.
I thought maybe you're thinking, I could relic this guitar. Let's have a go with a Black and Decker cymbal or something.
This is it. It kind of relicked itself just by because there's nothing to protect the finish.
No, that's it. So it's.
Like I say, you can sort of see that that neck was the same color as the headstock at one point, but that's just that guitar. Probably I've played more than any in my life, just because it was the only guitar I had for 10 years because I couldn't afford any more. So that, you know, I did most of my sort of you know, learning and woodshedding and getting my technique together on that thing. That was when I was a shredder rather than I had to play classically.
Well, a proper player, yeah. I've got a couple of percent left, so show us quickly the other guitars you got on the wall, and give us a quick spin of your obscene amount of pedals.
Okie dokie. So that is a Richie Kotzen Telecaster. That is a Patrick Eggle Berlin. That's my Taylor acoustic. That's just a stock Strat. Yeah, I think late noughties. That actually belonged to my wife's late father. And I was lucky enough that it sort of came my way. Basses for recording. Yeah, this is cool. Parker Fly. Always wanted one of these when I was a kid as well. That's a great Strat as well, believe it or not. I've got a Jeff Beck Strat. There's a Strat.